afternoon, g'day, as we say in this part of the world, and welcome to this presentation from the Education Abroad Network by World Strides on the top 5 reasons to study abroad in Australia. That was a blast from the past with Men at Work, but we are actually coming to you live from Australia. So if you can't hear me properly, that's the noise of the Pacific Ocean pounding the shoreline of Byron Bay, which is the most eastern point on the continent of Australia. I'm joined this evening by Matty, and I'll allow Matt to introduce himself. My name is Russ Alexander. I'm the Director, Head of Higher Innovation for World Strides Higher Ed. Krista Jackson has joined us in the chat, and she'll be looking at any questions you may have as we run through, and I'll let Matty introduce himself. G'day, Matt.
Good morning. Hi, guys. I'm Matty. So I went through the program back in Gold Coast just a few years ago now, but I'm originally based in the States, and now I live over here down in Sydney. So I'll be taking you guys through kind of the top 5 reasons that I went through on the study abroad program and some highlights that I had along the way as well. Starting off, I think we'll start off with number 5. Which is top-notch universities. So when I was a student, I went through the Griffith University, which is up in Gold Coast. And the main reason I loved it so much up there was we were right along the beaches. So with the university, the programs that I went through and the courses I took, I was kind of able to have a flexible schedule. So I could literally wake up in the morning, walk down to the beach, do a little morning beach swim, do all that kind of fun stuff, which is good, try not to get burned, head back, and then go to school in the afternoon. So I was able to kind of have that flexible kind of work study and kind of like balance with my lifestyle, which was amazing.
One of the things I think we've done, Matt, in particular, as a country, is we've done a really good job in Australia at exporting kind of our lifestyle and our image of lifestyle. People are very familiar with a lot of those parts of Australia, but perhaps not so familiar with a lot of the science, technology, and medical advances that have come out of our country. And the universities have really driven that. I was fortunate enough to attend the University of New South Wales, worked there for over a decade as the Director of Study Abroad for that institution. And during that time, I got to interact with a lot of professors and researchers at the university. At that time, the University of New South Wales had produced the most efficient solar cell on the planet. And 65% of the solar cells being used in solar car races and things like that were being generated out of Australia. Australian history shows us that penicillin was first used in this part of the world. Qantas has been an innovator. The black box flight recorder, those escape slides that come out of planes. These are all kinds of Australian inventions that perhaps we don't talk about enough. So I definitely believe one of the reasons for coming down here and hanging out is access to a lot of these great advances that perhaps as a country we should do a little bit better job about talking about. Number 4, well, now we will jump into the stereotypes a little bit, but there's lots of ways to ethically interact with kangaroos and koalas. And Matt, you studied here. I'm sure you have a couple of stories.
Yeah, so around the wildlife, that was kind of a key factor for me when I was looking for where I wanted to study. Australia obviously is very known for a very vast and kind of wildlife between different kangaroos and koalas and all that kind of wildlife that you see all the time on TV. Kind of coming down here, that was kind of a key factor that I wanted to experience. And TEAN actually, part of their kind of orientation of the first week is you get to kind of see the wildlife. And you can see a photo of me in the bottom right there, getting to see little wombats and we got all that kind of fun stuff, which is amazing. So you're able to kind of lessons behind it and hear about the wildlife and kind of where they came to be and where they are in Australia and all that sort of stuff while being able to kind of see them firsthand, which is incredible.
Yeah, indeed. And I think a lot of people are unaware just on that about how many types of kangaroo we actually have. I mean, people think that we have just a couple of kangaroos, but, count up all the macropods, which is that genesis. We're like over 160 types of kangaroo. And just those eastern greys that live on the eastern seaboard, something like 45 million of our top 3 or 4 kangaroos. So if they ever got their act together, we'd be in a lot of trouble. Of course, the Aussie lifestyle, this is something we export, but it is kind of real. I mean, I'm sitting here in Byron Bay, which is a quintessential surf town on the coast of New South Wales. I'm kind of a little biased, but I do believe we have some of the best coffee in the world. And that sort of easygoing, laid-back lifestyle is something that happens. not only through just it's what Australians like to do, but it's also kind of legislated. I mean, there are strong rules around how much you can work and how you can work and those kinds of interactions as well. So that lifestyle thing sort of permeates every aspect of what we do. The other thing about Australian lifestyle, I think that maybe a lot of people don't realise, is that the arts plays a big part in our life here. Music, film, festivals. The Opera Australia company, for instance, is one of the busiest opera companies in the world. And it's about 40% of Australians in one way, shape or form are actually engaged with the arts in some way. So again, not only is it about work ethic and sort of relaxing and getting a sensible work-life balance, but a lot of these other creative elements are there. Thriving music scene and great theatre in all of our cities.
Yeah, so leading into kind of the reason number two, the golden hour, the sunsets and sunrises, they are starting their absolute beautiful. And when I was in Gold Coast, as well as when I'm in Sydney now, we're both kind of ocean-based cities. So you see a lot of those kind of gorgeous sunsets over the ocean, over the beach. You can go down to the beach in the morning, see the sunrise go up. Last night, for example, I even went sunset around the Opera House, which is great. There's these kind of gorgeous kind of views that you get in these very picturesque kind of environments that remind you that just how beautiful the natural environment is around Australia and kind of landscape that's built around the cities. The reason why there's so many photos of studying abroad.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think it's not just these picture perfect sunsets that you get in places like this, but it's the built environment sunsets as well. And the Australian cities themselves, 4 of our major cities were again ranked in the top 10 by the EIU in terms of livability. And our cities are these incredibly diverse locations made up of lots of different people that have moved to Australia. About 1 in 4 Australians right now were not born on this continent. And people like Matt decided to travel and come and make this place their home. And as a result, our cities have this incredible diversity, very rich environments, and also very safe environments. We can comfortably say to students, get out and explore your cities without any fear of them really running into any trouble, because we're blessed with these environments that are also not only fun to explore, but also really safe to explore and get out and spend your weekends wandering around. One of the things we used to do is host coffee hours for students. And we would always pick a coffee shop in a very diverse part of town, or a part of town that a student wouldn't normally sort of stumble into, and challenge them to come find us. And that was always something they enjoyed, because they'd be like, oh, wow, I've never been over here. Wow, I didn't know they had this. I didn't know they had that. There's a market down the road here that happens on Saturdays. And so all of our major cities are on the coast, so they have that lifestyle element. They're either river cities or Sydney's a harbour city. But they definitely have this walkability. They have great public transport, so it's easy to get out and move around. Our great Aussie beaches. I think you might have a story or two about water, Matty.
Yeah. So up in Cairns, during that kind of first orientation, they took us up to Cairns, which is an incredibly beautiful part of Queensland up north, very tip. And we were able to do kind of the Great Barrier Reef, and we went scuba diving down there, and it was just incredible to kind of see entire reef and all of its kind of wildlife underwater and all that sort of around the islands and that sort of stuff. And then we did surfing one week. So it's very kind of ingrained that there's a beach culture there, and there's so many activities to kind of pick and choose from, which is incredible, because then you have all these amazing memories, experiences, and photos that you can bring back home with you.
Yeah, one of the when we invite students into Australia as part of our sort of introduction throughout the semester, we will run a series of cultural activities. Alluded to, and we always like to build those around sort of a lifestyle activity, an activity that engages students with the arts, and an activity that's sort of sporting based. Our lifestyle activity in Sydney is a surfing lesson, which is something that we all kind of do at one point or another. Mum and Dad will throw you on a surfboard and see how you go. But the company we use is called Let's Go Surfing, and that's a company which sort of is a good organisation to demonstrate our commitment to the kinds of organisations that we partner with here in Australia. Let's Go Surfing was started by 2 women And those women are now leaders in the New South Wales Business Council for Women, which is an organisation that's dedicated to making sure that there is women represented at the upper levels of our companies. It's also about giving women the entrepreneurial skills and the opportunities to run businesses in Australia. Those two women started the Clean Up Bondi campaign, which has been a very successful campaign for almost 20 years now, that looks at making sure our beaches and our waterways are clean. And their company as well uses recyclable material. So the surfboards that they're using to teach our students to surf on are made from recycled material. The wetsuits are recycled. And so they're the kinds of organizations that TEAN by World Strides, as an organization, likes to partner with, because sustainability in everything we do is a very important part of us as an organization as well. I'm going to ask Matt a question because he's here, and he is an example of somebody that we still talk to after 7 years of having him as a student, a study abroad student with us. And we often use this cliche that, study abroad changes your life. But how did study abroad change your life, Matt?
Yeah, for sure. So I think, the very obvious thing for me is I went through the program, absolutely loved it. Went back to Rhode Island, went to the University of Rhode Island there, finished my program. And when I was looking at kind of where I wanted to go next for jobs, Australia was still front of mind. And maybe I'll try it out. I'll do 1 year. Australia also has an amazing kind of network of visas that you can do. So I did a student visa, or a kind of a 1 year visa after you finish your degree. So I moved back to Sydney, actually, based on all the connections and friends that I had made during my semester, to do 1 year. And sure enough, I've been here for 5.5 now. So I loved it. It completely changed my kind of like course and my career path and stuff like that. And I was able to still do what I did and apply my degree, just in a different part of the world, which was phenomenal. And now I have this whole entire network over here and this life that I built for myself for the last 5 years. It's been beautiful. All because of my experience in study abroad kind of gave me that taste for it in those first 6 months.
And I've got a question in the chat about which city perhaps is a good destination for somebody that didn't want to live inside a major metropolitan center. And I think, one of the things that we did, the Education Abroad Network by World Strides actually started life as an organization called Study Australia. This is where we grew from. This is our home. And one of our objectives when Study Australia was created some 25 years ago was to make sure that we had something for everybody. And so we partnered with not only our group of 8 research-intensive institutions in all major cities, but we also developed partnerships with a lot of regional universities and institutions like the University of Newcastle, the University of Wollongong, Deakin University down the Great Ocean Road, some of the other institutions outside of Perth and on the outskirts, on the Gold Coast, Bond on the Gold Coast, which is outside of Brisbane, gave us an opportunity to say to students, okay, you can visit the major metropolitan cities, but you can also study in these regional areas. And we know that there are students from parts of the United States that perhaps don't want to be in the middle of downtown Melbourne. So a place like Newcastle or Wollongong, which essentially has a setting somewhat like this, gives students a chance to attend these institutions that are perhaps not right in the middle of downtown, but easy access to downtown. That's one of the things about the major Australian cities is that it is very easy to, as the locals would say, you go bush. You can get out of our major cities and get into wilderness extremely quickly. I mean, we have a population of around 28 million in a country that's approximately the same size as the United States. So we're 1/15 of the population of the United States. And even though we have these big urban centers, there's lots between. I did the drive up here with family. Honestly, about 3 days ago, we drove from Sydney, and it took us maybe 7 or 8 hours, and we traveled through so much Australian bush. It was just a reminder to me of how little footprint that people have made in this country. So another question for you, Matty, is what's the most surprising thing that you found when you when you studied abroad here? What was one of those biggest differences?
The cultural mindset. I think it was just how friendly people are, like how willing you are if you're not like sure where to go and that kind of stuff. You can talk to people quite easily, and they're quite friendliness. But easy of getting around cities was nice. Kind of like what Russ was saying before around the transport and stuff like that. Like I grew up in a very country environment in the States. So I'm not used to kind of a big bustling city. But you really can get anywhere, and the transport is so efficient, which is great. So I was kind of impressed by all of that. Like if I wanted to go hike in Blue Mountains, I could just hop on the train, and within 30 minutes, I'm out of the national park. Sydney is surrounded by 3 national parks, and they have amazing networks to get back and down, up and down the coast to get there. You can get on Wollongong, you can Royal National Park. So I was really impressed by the ease of things. It wasn't like this huge kind of journey if I want to go and hike outside the city. It actually was super easy. I found that really surprising, was just how convenient everything was. And you can just look up on your phone. They have little apps that can tell you where you want to go, if you want to hop on the metro, if you want to hop on the bus, if you want to hop on the train. It's just super easy, and it wasn't expensive. Like it's a few dollars to go up. On Sundays, it's free to go down. You can go over there to go hike at the National or Royal National Park and stuff like that, which is great. So I think that was kind of the initial shock, was just the convenience of where to get around, because it does seem so big and so daunting, but it actually is quite convenient and close.
Yeah. You know, I actually, because I hadn't been home in 2 years, this is my first time home in 2 years, and I'm sort of reconnecting with a bunch of things. Like I had forgotten how much technology we use in Australia, how everything is off the phone, and all these kind of things. I kind of forgotten that, because I was thinking, getting back to this place, and a lot of people I think have this image of Australia being, I don't know, somewhat backwards. I think it's outdoorsy, beachy government, but there was like a lot of high tech. Which is more affordable, you think, in terms of living in Australia? Do you think the big cities are more affordable, or the rural towns, the country towns? Is a question we have.
I would say like Gold Coast was quite affordable for me, because it wasn't this big bustling city, which was nice. But if I wanted to, Brisbane was just an hour north, so I could easily hop on the train up there. I had a bit of like it felt like a beach town kind of vibe, but it had its own like city feel to it as well. And I felt that was pretty affordable. Like anything like Sydney and Melbourne, they're bigger cities, so with that can come have different costs and that sort of thing. But I found my Gold Coast to be quite easy to get around and not like a breaking bank or anything. But then I had friends as well that were studying in Newcastle and down in Wollongong as well, which is more rural, and you have the beach town vibes, and which is just a bit easier on the wallet sometimes as well. So it kind of depends on where you're going. But overall, I didn't find them too excruciating on kind of the wallet.
I think it's interesting, because coming from Chicago, which is a pretty affordable city where I live now, in terms of big cities, one of the things I've forgotten about is how everything's bundled in. And so you see a price here in Australia, and you're like, oh, that might be a little expensive, and then you realise that obviously it's in Australian dollars, which is the current exchange rate is about 0.71 cents, and then there's no tax, and in most places there's no tipping. So when I start to do that math, I find, oh no, actually it's not really that expensive. Minimum wage in Australia, the federal minimum wage is over $20 an hour now. So students who come to Australia can work as part of their student visa. So there is opportunities for them to do okay. And I was very impressed with the uptake of vaccines here in Australia. Our national vaccine rate, we're at 94% of the country is vaccinated now, which is fantastic, and that's why the borders are opening up this month, and people are being welcomed back. But it was nice to be able to. I think that's something that Australians are pretty proud of, is the vaccine uptake and healthcare in general in this country.
It's a community with that. Like I remember having been here through the entire years of the pandemic, just the sense of community was huge. Like we need to get the vaccines. Everyone just does it when you book it in. Made it very easy. Same kind of thing with technology. You just got online, you figure out what appointment there was that showed you closest one to you, that sort of stuff. And there just was the better sense of community where like we all need to get through this. We all need to kind of group together. And that was kind of a nice thing to see as well. Just living here past my kind of study experience as a just adult. It's very nice to see.
How have you found the healthcare system in general?
I mean, compared to the US, beautiful. Yeah, it's just convenient. Everything's like obviously like they've the universal healthcare and that kind of stuff. So it's just Medicare here is phenomenal. And it was super easy. When I was a student, we had a few students that had to go in to get like if they got cuts or scrapes or something on the beach or on a rock and that kind of stuff. Then went in. It was super easy, convenient. And it seemed a bit like convenient was the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's good. So, was the main reason you came back? I mean, what drove that decision? I mean, I'm interested.
The reason to come back originally was like, okay, I was at the time I was 22, and I was like, I'll do a year abroad. I knew Australia. I had friends in Australia. I'd already made connections and networks there, which was phenomenal. So I think the original plan was actually to be for 5 years. It was to be for 1 year, and I'll like kind of do work experience here. Because I work in marketing, so I decided to do that. It was easy to kind of transfer that over here, which was great. And then you just get settled into it. You love the lifestyle, you love the culture, you love the weather. And then you're like, I'll do another year, and then you're here 5 years later. So it kind of like it just hooks you in. It's nice. It's just friendly, just very welcoming, and just kind of makes you want to stay.
You studied abroad alone. You didn't come with a group of friends, right? I think I remember.
No, so I went through the TEAN program, but I didn't know anyone before joining the program. I didn't go with like a mate or anything, that kind of stuff like that. So the program itself, because of the orientation and that sort of stuff, kind of to meet other people in the program, which is great. But also then you're in class with other students, like other Australians or other international students, and that kind of lends itself to making friends that way as well. And then you're part of a university, so just like the universities back home, there's clubs and programs you can join to make new friends that way as well. So it kind of, it's a very inclusive environment that kind of makes you feel welcome, kind of make some new friends, which I'm still in touch with 5 years later today through obviously through social media and that kind of stuff. You stay kind of quite close, and they're quite fascinated with it. Me, who moved back over here and kind of continued my life. A lot of them are quite jealous. So
yeah, well, I mean, I think how the demographics of our programs have changed a little bit over the years. I think in the early days of studying Australia, a lot more students did what you did. They came alone a lot more. And now I think we're starting to see students perhaps travel a bit in groups a little bit more. I think we're starting to see that change. But did you find it difficult to make friends on campus? And number two, do you think you hung out more with American students or other international students or local students? And what was the kind of mix in terms of your relationship?
So my experience up in Gold Coast, there was about 20 of us, I think, that went through Griffith University. So there was a healthy kind of group of Americans that all kind of went to the university together. And so a lot of us did lean on each other for kind of those first few weeks where you're kind of setting up the kind of getting used to where you're living and where everything is at. And you're kind of doing those little trips, like you're going to the grocery store together to figure out what the quickest path is and all that kind of stuff. Go to Woolies. And those kind of things. And over time, as the semester kind of went on, you joined different clubs. And so at the university, you kind of got to meet other Australians or other international students. That was quite easy because you just joined a club with similar interests and you already have something of a close bond. But I know about other friends I went through universities where there were maybe the one or two only Americans in the program that kind of, because of the orientations and stuff, universities kind of, they were able to make quite quickly that weren't Americans, just because of the program they were going through. So it really depends on kind of the university you're going with and what you kind of, the experience you kind of want. It opens it up if you want to make friends with other internationals or other Australians. But there's obviously the TEAN program that you kind of lean on if you just want to be around the Americans and have that comfort with you as a base.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk about Australia because for 2 years we've been wanting to do this. It's great to be home. Great to reconnect with you. And thanks everybody for joining us for this little quick conversation around why you might want to come down here and hang out with the locals. I'm going to go grab some more coffee and have a swim. I don't know what your day has in touch with, Matty, but thanks very much.